coming up in this episode.
So they couldn't get the weapons. Where would they get the weapons from? From Pakistan. Where would they get their weapons from?
I think I have a little story to add into this that you would like very much. So,
the trail of bodies and blood that we've been seeing from Bosnia up till now, all I'd hope for is that we don't want to see, more and more of this, but you'd want people to learn the lessons and not to keep repeating the same mistakes and getting trapped in the same, kind of rhetorics and tricks that people have played before.
And defending the honor of Islam and Muslims is not being radicalized. That's not an extremist. This is what I mean by Islam. This is what I'm talking about. Yeah, this is the Islam that I want to bring back, where we bring peace and harmony to the world, where nobody goes hungry, where we share our resources.
There is always potential for conflict, and I only see the future of the Muslims in the Balkans is what they had in the past.
This episode will be a collection of insights and reflections along with some extra recordings from Shahid Butt, Dr. Adnan Siddiqui from Cage, and the two guests that we spoke to in the very beginning, Harris, whose page on Instagram is Harristory, make sure you check it out, and my good friend Petrit. So let's begin episode 8. Whilst I was interviewing Harris, when he spoke, he reminded me of a story that I thought, you know what, maybe I should share this with him. So here it is.
like, what was the situation with that?
Amazing question. So as we mentioned, there was an arms embargo. So they couldn't get the weapons. Where would they get the weapons from? From Pakistan. Where would they get their weapons from?
I think I have a little story to add into this that you would like very much. So I was in Pakistan some years ago, and I don't want to give locations and whatnot, but I was in a masjid, and there was a very old man. After the salah, I noticed that he spoke to the younger guys at the back, and then he went off. And every salah I went to, he was doing that, and they were really attentively listening to him. But I didn't understand the language, so I don't understand Urdu. So I was wondering, like, what's this guy saying? I was curious, so I asked one of the kids. I said, "Look, what is this old man saying to you guys?" And the kid was like, "Look, that's my granddad. You should meet him. He was a general in the Pakistan army." So I was like, okay, interesting. So I sat with him, and I'm just asking questions about Pakistan. I'm trying to understand Pakistan, the army, and all these things and how it works. And he's retired, obviously, and I was asking him questions, and then I asked him about the ISI. I was like, "Tell me about the ISI. Like, what is the ISI?" So he was like, he turned around and he looked at me like I'm confused, and he spoke English, of course, and he said, "I am ISI," like that. And I was like, what the hell? I was so confused. I was thinking, why is this guy, why is he talking to me like that? I was just confused. And then his grandson said to me, "Look, my granddad was the ex-director of the ISI." So I was like, "Is that true?" He said, "Yeah, I was there for 1 year, then they removed me." And I was like, "Why?" And he told me that during the Bosnian War, I was the only Muslim general that provided arms to the Bosnian Muslims. You can Google his name. His name is General Javed Nasser. Wow. He was the only Muslim military general in the whole world against the order of the West and the Pakistani government. He dropped arms for the Muslims in Bosnia, and apparently they celebrate him till today. He's a hero. You can Google him, you'll find out about him. And then obviously the rest is history, like in terms of like, then he said that America tried to get me and they tried to try me, and XYZ happened. He's basically at home. But yeah, that was like, I mean, Pakistan, like my visits, my travels there, like it just shows me how connected this ummah is. Like thousands of miles away, a Muslim general hears the call, and he decides, "Look, I don't care what the government says. I'm sending my planes or whatever he sent over to give Muslims." And I remember speaking to someone who's also like you, very interested in Bosnia, and I told them that I met someone that you might be of interest.
Oh man,
and they were like, "Don't tell me it's General Javed Nasser." I was like, "Yeah, I met him," because there's no photos of him. He believes having a photo is haram. He's a very religious man, very, very religious. But yeah, man, that's it's interesting.
Bro, I'm jealous. I wish I was there, man. I wish I was there. But that's a beautiful story, man. Just the fact that he's just a casual uncle in the back, just giving these kids like lectures on like his military service and stuff. That's amazing. SubhanAllah. Yeah, So like Pakistan played a big role, as you mentioned. People like to say, "Oh, what did the Muslim Ummah do for Bosnia?" We did a lot. there was at least, I think, almost 10,000 foreign fighters. For Bosnia, that's big. Bear in mind, you had no army in Bosnia. They had small brigades here and there. It was only towards the end of the war that they really began to make this really fierce fighting force. But it was completely disorganized at the beginning. But towards the end of the war, with the help of Indonesia, even, you have Indonesian Muslims that you can see these old unks with glasses, like running through the snow, transporting weapons and grenade launchers and whatever. This is the beauty of this ummah. No matter how far we are, no matter who we are, no matter which ethnicity we are there for each other. And I think Mozambique, if you manage to speak to him, he will say there's nothing that the Bosnians appreciated more than the charity and the Mujahideen, because those were the people that helped finance the defense of Bosnia.
After the interview with Dr. Adnan Siddiqui, we decided to continue the conversation in my car as I drove him to get him to his next appointment.
So when you went there, what was the situation like in the 90s for people to understand today what was actually taking place? Was it a genocide? Was it a massacre? Was it a bit of civil war? What was actually happening on the ground?
No, I mean, these terms, they become meaningless because, like even now, if you watch what's happening in Gaza, it's a genocide. Ethnic cleansing, all of these types of things. But reality is it's nasty. Like if I was going to say to you the one thing, I've seen dead bodies. That's not a problem. I've seen that because I do deal with work. That's normal. What I've never been able to get out of my head, and I actually experienced it just recently, is the smell of dead bodies. And that's just something which, I had to see one of my patients recently who passed away, Muslim lady, and I'm sorry to say that the odor, it brought me back to that time, because when you have bodies which are not buried or that they've been put in shallow graves or stuff like this, I hope no one has to experience it, but it's something you can't get out of your head. You certainly can't get it out of your nostrils. It's not something which I'd ever, would want people to experience and everything like that. And that's the reality of war, is that, when people sort of say, it's collateral damage or we've tried to do our best. No, these are people who have been, murdered. And like I said to you, is that I'm sorry to say that we shouldn't get involved in these kind of discussions about, is it a genocide, is it a massacre, is it a civil war? These are that's a dialogue of the people who are sitting in conferences who are dealing with this. Like I said, when you're on the ground and people these are simple things of survival, and like I said, when you unleash those forces, then they're very hard to put back into place. And unfortunately, like I said to you, is that it's the same way how the war ended. It didn't really end the Bosnia war. Basically, what happened is that everyone was expecting that the arms embargo that was imposed on Bosnia, which, like I said, going back to politics, is that the people who helped to break the arms embargo were all nations which on paper wouldn't be cooperating with each other. It could be there were arms being delivered from sort of Pakistan, from Malaysia, from Turkey. These were all covert things that were sort of happening, but like I said to you, is that when it was quite clear that the Bosnians were not going to suddenly just disappear and die, and then when actually I think what turned the war was, again, a lot of this is related to air power, is that there was no air force that any of the Serbs, Croats or the Bosnians had. But when the Americans, I think, started to bomb Serb targets, I can't remember what it was that actually triggered that sort of thing there, but literally, the war changed. And some people would say it wasn't about the Americans doing that. It was actually that the Muslims started to win on the ground. And when they were literally they just broke out of Bihać pocket, and they also broke out from central Bosnia where a lot of the Mujahideen were. And it was literally like everything was being, taken almost day by day. And, those brothers who I know who were there, they were saying that, maybe that was people talking, sort of hubris and kind of pride, but they said that we'll be in Belgrade next, which is the capital of Serbia. And I think that's maybe, people getting too excited. But the issue was is that certainly the capital of, or the main center, Banja Luka, where there were massacres and everything, that was about to fall. And then this is when the, I think it was the Dayton Accords or something were, sort of like put forward, and everyone's suing for peace. And I think this is the issue that we need to sort of be aware of, even when we look at what's happening in Gaza now, is that the peace process only happens when you've got cards on the table or in your hand that you can actually, people are not going to do it because they feel sorry for you, they like you. Okay, you need to present them with a threat, and you need to be able to sort of say, this is what we can do and this is what we may potentially do. Okay, so this is again, I'm not a politician, but enough seeing and reading of history is that you need to be, you can't turn up to negotiate if you are always there begging. And I think that also applies a lot to the political process that Muslims as a minority in Europe often do, is that they keep going there with a begging bowl. No, make your own institutions, strengthen yourselves, and become independent. And then after that, when people come to you, don't go with a begging bowl and with a begging hand. It's just not. Is neither is it a good look, but it's also not effective. So it's those are the main sort of lessons to say. And to be frank, is that the trail of bodies and blood that we've been seeing from Bosnia up till now, all I'd hope for is that we don't want to see more and more of this, but you would want people to learn the lessons and not to keep repeating the same mistakes and getting trapped in the same kind of rhetorics and tricks that people have played before. And our leadership and people like this, like I said to you, I think that unless you've been out into those hot zones and actually, more importantly, lived and experienced them, because like I said, there's a part of relief work where you can be very, very closeted and kept away, like a lot of these Western NGOs, they'll stay in places like the Hilton and others and will be shipped in and everything like that. But that's something which I think is a shame, because it just means it's like a business rather than actually any kind of truly humanitarian work. Is that there are humanitarians, I've seen them working in all of these places where they are on the ground and doing things, but sadly, like I said, there are just as many humanitarians, Muslim and non-Muslims, who treat this as a business, and I'm sorry to say that is not what it should be.
Next up, I asked Shahid Butt about any personal reflections he has, along with any lessons that we can take from the whole Bosnia episode.
And what are the kind of lessons that we can draw from what happened there, maybe for today or for future conflicts, and maybe some personal lessons or some personal reflections?
The whole Bosnia episode, saga, time, conflict, whatever you want to call it, for me, it was a because I went from being a boy to a man. So that's where I found, when I became a man, my manhood came about, and all the reality of what this world is about started to make sense. Because before this, I was living in La La Land. Even though when you read about the history and about the wars, and you read about, how bad people can be, even like about the munafiqeen and about all the trials and tribulations that the Muslims went through, you're just reading it in a book. But when I actually physically felt it touched it, saw it with my own eyes, and was actually a physical part of it, it opened these neurological pathways in my mind. Because at the time, again, I didn't know all these fancy words and I didn't understand all this psychological stuff that was going on, but I was being reprogrammed. That environment was reprogramming me. And all the hardships that I went through from Bosnia to Afghanistan, to going to prison, to being tortured, 5 years in prison, not seeing my wife and my children for 5 years, suffering all that emotional trauma. When I was in prison, I was the only one that was married. Yeah, all the others were single. Yeah. So the shaitan would come in my ear and do waswasa. What if your kid's dying on their deathbed here and they say they want to see their dad? How are you going to see them? What are you going to do? What if somebody attacks your family while you're here and you're not even there to protect them or whatever? Yeah. What kind of a man are you? All of these kind of, and this was tearing me apart emotionally. So I had to learn, self-taught. I had to literally and physically, emotionally turn off a switch inside my body. I had to turn off my emotions. I had to say to myself, I don't have a wife and I don't have children. It's just me, myself, and I'm on my own. Because even in the prison, I had to be on my own. There were so many shenanigans that they used to get up to, we'll digress. Yeah. So I had to become like that Lone Ranger. I had to become that, for a better word, that Rambo, that one-man guy, because I knew that I can't rely on anybody and I can't trust anybody, but I have to rely on myself and trust myself. So I became that very insulated, This is why when they used to put me in solitary confinement for fighting or beating somebody up or whatever, it made no difference to me. I just talk to the walls. Yeah, in my mind, when I was in solitary confinement, I would go on holiday. I would go out of the prison. I'd go to Hawaii. I'd go to the beach. I think I even played golf in my head. I just used to transcend out of my mind. And during those times is when I wouldn't say I had an epiphany, but that's when I had this, I almost, mentally and spiritually, I just broke this ceiling. And it just became like everything became clear to me. I wasn't stressed. Everything was clear. I understood what I have to do. I understood what was going on. I understood all the games and all the gimmicks and this and that. Yeah. I understood my limitations. I understood everybody else's limitations. And I just transcended above that limit. Yeah. Once that happened, when I came out, yeah, it just made me into a different person. People say, oh, Shahid, you've changed. Yeah. I said, yeah, I have changed. But what's changed is only exterior. Now I don't wear tracksuits. I have a nice car and, I do business, because I got to pay the bills. And, I'm a bit more, I'm a lot more mature or whatever. But I said, inside, I have the same fire inside me and that fire will never go out. And I told you why, because it's imprinted into my soul. What I've seen with my eyes, I can never unsee. What I've heard, I can never unhear. And what I've had to physically go through, I can't ungo through that. So it's with me for the rest of my life. So no matter what happens, I may drift off here and I may drift off there and I may fall off the wagon here, but inherently, I'm still that same person. I'm not saying I know it all, I have all the answers, but generally speaking, I'm speaking from my personal experiences. And alhamdulillah, over the years and years that I've been out there talking, giving dawah, I've been up and down the country, I've been abroad, I've done a lot of work in Sweden, and in my anti-gangs, anti-drugs, de-radicalization, because people say, oh, well, how can you talk about radicalization? You were the most radicalized person and you were radical. I go, bro, this is a problem with you see. You are using you're misunderstanding. Fighting and defending the honor of Islam and Muslims is not being radicalized. That's not an extremist. Killing innocent people like ISIS, that's extremism. Yeah. Joining a gang and killing people for a postcode, that's extremism. Selling drugs to your brothers and sisters, that's extremism. Robbing and looting and raping and committing adultery with other people's daughters, that's extreme, because that's got nothing to do with Islam. You've gone to the extreme now, my brother. You need to come back. That's how I fight extremism. Yeah, and that was always my message. Yeah, that come back to the deen. This is not how you express yourself. And alhamdulillah, because I'm, been there, done it, and got the t-shirt, even now at the age of 60, I can talk to 12-year-old boys. I can talk to 15-year-old boys and give me 5 minutes with them. And they'll be uncle, what are you saying, uncle? From like, who's this guy? Who's this guy think he is, yeah? Just give me 5 minutes. Let me just give you a little quick CV, yeah, about who Shahid Butt is, what I've done, where I've come from here. And at the end of the conversation, they're like, yo, bro, uncle's a proper old school G, We just do it on GTA. My man's been in the battlefield. My man's got the scars to prove it. And what that does, it goes back to my point about the right people for the job. Why do I get that traction with young people? Why do I keep getting called back? Why do I have an effect on the young people? Why they want me to do talks and get involved? I mean, I was doing a lot pre-COVID, and then after COVID, I just haven't really got back into the flow of things again. Yeah. Why? Because of the stories that I've just told you. When they hear this, and also what I've realized is that a lot of the young generation, the biggest thing that one of the biggest things that I see is that they are lacking role models. The Sahaba used to fight, wrestle in the courtyard of the Masjid Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You people of the deen, would you stand on the mimbar? If you can't show bravery, then how do you expect your followers to show you bravery? You have the Quran in your heart. You have the knowledge inside you. You should be the bravest of all of us. But you're the weakest. Because all you want to do is collect chanda.
Jazakallah khair. I don't want the interview to end, but we can leave it there. Or if you have any other thoughts that you want to add, maybe like what's the legacy of Bosnia? How should we remember it today?
Bosnia was a place of great sacrifice by the Bosnian people who suffered the most. Their men, women, children, the massacre in Srebrenica, that was a genocide that took place in Bosnia. And we should never forget that. And the only reason it happened was because they were Muslims. Because they said, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. And here's the irony of it. I've already told you in this interview that they were Muslims by a little thread. Just a little thread. Maybe he knows Surah Fatiha. I told you about the girl who's reading Surah Yasin. There was something inside them that I remember, my grandma used to read this book, and every morning she used to read it, but I've never read it. But there was just that seed inside them. That seed was not digestible by the West. That there's a seed of Islam in these people in Europe, in Central Europe. No, we can't allow that. Never, because they know our history. Because they know that the Muslims are sleeping giants. The day they wake up, when he yawns and stretches his arm out, yeah, half the nations are going to fall that side and half are going to fall that side, because we've done it in the past. So this is why. So Bosnia was a modern day wake-up call for Muslims to show us that even if you have a seed of iman in your heart, they will not let you rest. So what do you think they're going to do to us today? We've got a masjid on every corner. We've got Hafiz Quran, mashallah, coming out of every masjid. We've got sisters with niqab and hijab. Islam, Muhammad, the name Muhammad is the most famous name. You think they're not quaking in their pants? Do you think they're not sitting there thinking, oh my God, we can't allow this to happen? But what they're not going to do is they're not going to go to war with you in this country and in Europe, because they don't want bloodshed on their own corner. What they're going to do is psychologically destroy you. Women, girls, TikTok, music, soft porn, heavy porn, this, that, drinking, clubs, influencers, the youth, bring your wife onto this, that. Oh, look, and hijabi Barbies, with everything, sticking out with the hijab on. Yeah, these wishy-washy brothers, with their, designer beards and talking, this, that, blah, blah, and all this stuff. Yeah, this is how they have, and they've been very, very successful in destroying the fabric of Islam in this country. We've got a massive task on our hands, and every single person that's listening to my voice needs to understand, that it's never too late. Stand up, learn your deen, read the Quran, read the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, study, learn, increase your ibadah, pray your 5-time daily prayers, fast, do sadaqah, volunteer, help the weak and the oppressed. Be a good person, be a role model, be an ambassador for Islam. Because here, we're not going to fight a war here. Not yet. Here, it's we have to be, we have to hold the moral high ground. But at the same time, like I said, if they come for you, if they try to attack you, deal with them. Don't turn the other cheek. So it's got to be a combination of spiritual strength combined with physical strength. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? He said that he loves the strong believer over the weak believer. They're both believers. Yeah. And then the wishy-washy amongst us here will say, oh no, but he's not talking about fighting, and they're talking about, but relax, man. Why do you get the hump every time something about fighting? Why do you have to defend it all? Relax, it's okay. Yeah, the Prophet ﷺ saying he likes the strong believer. It's okay. If you're feeling, if it's making you feel less manly, that's your problem. Yeah, I want to be a strong believer, spiritually, physically, mentally, financially, in every way. What's wrong with that? I want to strive to be that person. If you got an issue with that because you're a wuss bag, that's your problem. Yeah, go and put some muscle on, get in the gym, eat some protein. Yeah, you know what I mean, and take some testosterone injections and man up yourself if that's what it's going to take you to do. Yeah, but don't belittle others who do that. That Islam is just about spirituality and all that. No, it's not. Islam is it's a deen. It's a holistic religion. Yeah. So don't just pick and choose what you want. So my message to everybody listening to this, I'm not saying you have to agree with everything that I say. Some of the stuff I may have said that you might think, well, now the guy's just going over the top now, or now I don't agree with that. That's fine. Yeah. You don't have to follow me. You know what I mean? I'm just voicing my opinion from my lived life experience. You can take it or leave it. It's fine. It's no problem. If I've said something that is un-Islamic or goes against Islam, I apologize and rectify me, and may Allah forgive me. Yeah, but I'm not saying it on purpose that I want to. I love Islam. I love the Muslims, and I want to see us here. I want to see us back to our natural state, because I believe in my heart, Islam is a solution to all the world problems. Islam and an Islamic state governed by Sharia will bring back peace and harmony to the world, where once again we can go back to Jews, Muslims, Christians, mushriks, everybody, whoever they are. Lakum dinukum waliya din. To you is your religion, and to me is my religion. You practice your religion, I practice mine. I don't encroach on you, you don't encroach on. You live with me, no problem. Live in my lands. The Jews lived in Andalusia for hundreds and hundreds, and we said when they were persecuted by the Christians, we said, brothers, Jewish brothers, come, you're our cousins. Ismail and Ishaq, you're our cousins. We have a shared heritage. Ayo, come, live with us. Stay in our protection and flourish. This is what I mean by Islam. This is what I'm talking about. Yeah, this is the Islam that I want to bring back, where we bring peace and harmony to the world, where nobody goes hungry, where we share our resources, and we live in peace. It might be a utopia. People say, oh, well, but inshallah it will happen, because Allah promised us it will happen. So, that's my message to people listening.
Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair.
To finish off this series, I asked our Balkan political analyst, Petrit, who we spoke to in episode 1 and 2, about what the future of the Balkans could look like. a thing that really interested me in speaking to you was that you seem to be someone that was looking quite ahead at the future trends when it comes to the world, and particularly the Balkans. And I remember going to a presentation of yours which was about that, and you mentioned that there could be a future conflict that arises. Could you tell us more about that?
Serbia always had plans on Bosnia, even going back to late 19th century. So the first time around is in 1878, Treaty of Berlin, Austria-Hungary. They took away Bosnia from the Ottomans, and they did not give any piece of the land to Serbia. So the Serbs were upset with this, because Serbia, as we know, you need warm ports in the sea to do trade, to do international trade, and Serbia always lacked this. So they needed to get through Bosnia into the Adriatic Sea. So they lost that ability to go through Bosnia. They tried through Albania, they reached the sea, but then Austria-Hungary came and created Albania as a separate fake country, quite frankly, and the Serbs were upset with this. So Serbia always felt that Bosnia was an extension of it. And even today you have people in Bosnia, Serbs in Bosnia, who think of a greater Serbia. They believe in a greater Serbia. So they want to expand Serbia into Bosnia. They feel it's their own natural right, God-given right, that they want to expand, okay? And this talk has been brewing up for the past few years. And even you have Milorad Dodik, who is the head of the Republika Srpska, the head of the Serbs in Bosnia. He's a nationalist who's brewing these things up. He's supported by the Russians, and the Russians are happy to play the supporting role in the Balkans. They always felt like the Serbs need help in the Balkans. So, and the fact that if you look at the borders, the way they were drawn up in 1995 by the Dayton Agreement, it is there's no coherence into it. Quite frankly, anyone within a week, within a few months, everyone who owns weapons there, you could have a conflict arise in a very, very short span, and I will find that Europe will find it very difficult to respond. Even if they did, they probably let a thousand Muslims die before they intervened. So one is that Europe has not set up a political system, as I mentioned, in a coherent way to try and resolve the problem permanently. So there's all these aspects of the Serbs basically breaking out, because the 91 war, 93 was spontaneous. There was thinking behind it, but it was spontaneous. So, the Balkans, whether it be Bosnia and Kosovo, they are split between this east and the west. And I do not see Europe winning the hearts and the minds. I don't think they have that ability. There is always potential for conflict, and I only see the future of the Muslims in the Balkans is what they had in the past under the Islamic Khilafah, because that's where that's where they had the most peaceful, prosperous times, and I do not see any future for them unless it's under the Islamic Khilafah.
What could the future look like for them now, given the fact that you're hearing this rhetoric from Serbian nationalist movements and the idea of a greater Serbia? It sounds like the idea of a greater Israel. What could be the implications of that realistically for Muslims in the Balkans?
I think if it does come to it, I think Europe will happily let it play. They just let another, Zionism slaughter 17,000 children. So when it comes to the sanctity of human life, they have none of it. It's not they have some high morals where they're going to look at, human beings, we want to protect human rights, right? So they don't care about that. If it's in their benefit, in their interest, to let a few thousand Muslims know who's in charge in Europe, let them feel scared, let them feel that you're always in the help of Europe, in the need of Europe, I think Europe will let that happen, just like they let it happen in 92, 95, right? I remember in 99, just to give a sort of a comparison, I remember watching TV, these US Apache helicopters in the border with Albania. They would go in and they would shoot at empty targets. While on the other side of the border, the Serbs were massacring Kosovars and Albanians day in, day out. And from my perspective, thinking, why are these guys shooting empty? Why can't they just cross the border and actually finish the Serbs and help them out, right? And I just realized that maybe they don't want to do that. Maybe they just want to prolong the war, right? And what you find, you find these even in these double standards when it comes to Zionism, where so they give you the aid airdrops, but in the end they're happy for you to die basically from bombs, right? So there is a potential for the conflict and the potential for the Muslims to die in large numbers if the conflict was to come up again.
This series was brought to you by The Other Archive. Make sure you follow our social media pages. So that brings us to the end of this series. I want to thank you all for listening. Please do continue to share these stories with your friends, and I hope that this can be a historical contribution to the Ummah. Your feedback is very valuable, so please, if you have any, make sure you message me and get in touch. I hope to continue to bring you more stories, perhaps ones that are less known. I want to bring these stories to light. As you can tell, right now, I'm tired after all of the editing and after all of the interviews, but alhamdulillah, we finally made it to the end. Keep updated on my social media pages, and don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to this from. If you want to support projects like this, then you may do so by supporting The Other Archive on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/The Other Archive. Just remember, your support goes a very long way. And that's it from me. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.